Alright, here's welcome to, I guess, Chapter 7, Rational Expressions, 7.1. This is video C, so this is the last video that we're going to have for 7.1. And this section we're going to talk about simplifying a rational expression with the value of -1. So in 7.1b, we talked about simplifying a rational expression. 7.1c, we're going to talk about simplifying a rational expression with a value of -1. So we're going to fast forward through all the stuff that we've done. Here's 7.1a. We've talked about this. This is the video that we in this this slide we talked about in 7.1a, 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 7.1b, 7.1b, and now here we are to 7.1c. So this is a slide that we're going to talk about in 7.1c. We're going to essentially simplify a rational a ratio or a rational expression when we have a -1. So sometimes we're going to have a -1 factor that we can factor out. If we can factor that out of either the numerator or the denominator, we can maybe start canceling stuff out. So let's take a look at, remember, kind of reminding ourselves about factoring. So when we factor, we've got to look for factors. Factors, again, multiply together. Factors are things that multiply together. So they don't add up. When you're adding things up, that's not factoring. But factors multiply together. So we've got to factor things out into things that multiply together in the numerator and the denominator. So for example, we could take a look at x minus 2. X minus 2 is the opposite of 2 minus x. And if we divide these, we get -1. But we could also say, well, if we've got x minus 2 divided by 2 minus x, let's redefine our denominator down here. X minus 2 is going to stay the same, x minus 2. That's not going to change. But if we notice that 2 minus x, if we could factor out a -1, because they are opposites, x minus 2 and 2 minus x, we could really say that this might be even negative x plus 2, and that might be even clearer to say that x minus 2 is the opposite of this, because x minus 2's opposite is right here, negative x plus 2, which is essentially what that is here as well. So these are opposites. So when we factor out the -1 down here, we get -1. We could probably take even an intermediate step here and say, well, let's factor out a -1. The -1 will give us -2 plus x when we factor out that -1. And -1 times -2 plus x is the same as -1 times x minus 2. X minus 2 is the same as -2 plus x, just in a different we've written it down a little bit differently. So x minus 2 over 2 minus x is x minus 2, that didn't change, over -1 times x minus 2. And x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 cancels out. And we've got to remember that we've got 1 times all this stuff up here, and that 1 kind of becomes a place marker right there. So the x minus 2's cancel out. This becomes 1 over -1, which essentially becomes -1 then. So if we notice that we've got, the bottom line is, if we notice that we've got x minus 2 and 2 minus x, and these are opposites. In other words, they're just in opposite order, or everything is opposite about this one. X is here, negative x is here. -2 is here, positive 2 is here. When we've got opposites, then we can cancel them out to -1. But make sure that you do go through the steps and show what you know so you can get credit for it fully. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at factoring this. We've got to simplify. When we simplify, again, if we take a step back and say, what are steps to simplify an equation? This is from 7.1b, video B. Here's our steps to simplify. We've got to factor the numerator and the denominator. We've got to identify restricted values. And then simplify by canceling out identical expressions, which essentially are factors. Cancel out factors from the numerator and denominator. So factor the numerator and denominator, cancel factors. Factor the numerator and denominator, 3c minus 3d. Well, there's a common factor here that is 3. So here's our numerator. Factor out a 3, and we've got 3 times c minus d. And if we double check our work, 3 times c is 3c, 3 times -d is -3d. Okay, that's a correct factorization. Now if we go and factor our denominator, here's our denominator, d minus c. Well, d minus c is d minus c. And we could put that in parentheses and say, well, it's 1 times d minus c, because there's a factor and there's a factor. And now we've got to say, is there any factor here in the numerator and denominator that are, especially here, factor to -1 because they're opposites? Opposites would have opposite terms in each one of them. X, it'd be positive x, negative 2, positive 2. Let's look down here. I got a positive c and a negative c. All right, well, those are opposites. I got a negative d and a positive d. All right, well, that's looks like an opposite as well. So let's take a look at maybe factoring, not the numerator. We'll keep the numerator alone, or not factored, or not modified. Here's 3 times c minus d. And there's our denominator. We're gonna kind of redefine this as 1 times d minus c. We're gonna call it 1 times negative c plus d, because all we're doing is rewriting that blue denominator here as negative c minus d. Let's see if I can extend my page. There we go. We've got some more room here. And now let's see what our numerator looks like. Our numerator is not going to change. It's still 3 times c minus d. 3 times c minus d. Let me clear this up here a little bit. That's 3 times c minus d. Do that green here. 3 times c minus d. All right. And now our denominator becomes, hang on a second, where we go? There it is. Let's see if we can factor out a negative 1. Negative 1 times 1 times positive c minus d. And all we're doing is factoring out a negative 1. So if we factor out a negative 1 here, negative c divided by negative 1 gives me c. D divided by negative 1 gives me negative d. And there is a factor of negative 1 being pulled out of this. So now I can say what cancels out? C minus d divided by c minus d. C minus d is a factor because c minus d is multiplied by 3. C minus d in the denominator is a factor because it's multiplied by all this stuff as well. So now we can cancel factors, and we can say c minus d divided by c minus d is 1, so that cancels out. And what's our answer? 3 over negative 1, 3 over negative 1, or negative 3. And that should be our answer. So there's our answer there. All right, so now what I'd like to do is allow you guys, something's going on with my pen here, so let's go here. I'm going to say, give this to you and say, please do that one as a way to get into class. So we're going to have, to get into class, you're going to show me this one here, that you factor that and factor out a negative 1, and you're going to show me this one here as well to show me that you factored that numerator and denominator, give me the restricted values, and identify your simplified rational expression by canceling out common factors. So show me that one to come into class, and we'll see you soon.